Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And on today's episode, we have an interesting figure that was carved 14,000 years ago of a bison licking an insect bite that was carved from a weapon. So kind of interesting, kind of neat.
Yeah, yeah. One of
This is just weird.
the two fun things about this that strike it out to me is, um, first of all, that it is carved from reindeer antler. Um, so Santa Claus, we're very sorry.
Oh no, Rudolph! Oh no!
And the other thing is, the first thing that you might be thinking, which is bison, not typically known for being native to Europe, but rather to North America. And that is because this is not an American bison being depicted, but an extinct species known as a steppe wisent or bison priscus that did roam the plains of Europe 14,000 years ago.
The European bison?
So it's a steppe bison.
Yeah.
What are you doing, step bison?
Aaron. Good joke, but Aaron. Yeah, so it's an interesting little thing. It's a really small carving, about 4 inches wide, and the figurine, it's super intricately detailed, carving the hairs of the bodies, the horns, giving it a really interesting lifelike attribute. And it was found in France, and they attribute it to the Magdalenian, a Paleolithic culture that existed in Europe from 23,000 to 14,000 years ago during the last ice age. And these people were known for their artworks, which included charcoal cave paintings and other engravings and bone tools. So it's just really interesting. They're very artsy, and they were really big game hunters. I mean, these bison were not small in person. They would be enough to feed a group of people for quite some time. You're talking 300-400 pounds of meat, like not hanging weight. You're talking just actual pound weight.
Yeah, no, and the bison, like the one that is depicted on this artifact here, it was their primary food source for their big game hunting. That and apparently horses, which
the
I guess if you haven't figured out how to domesticate them, do qualify as a viable big game food source.
I mean, also realistically, this is 20,000 to 14,000 years ago. You're really going to eat whatever you can hunt and find and harvest. You're not going to really discriminate. You're not going to go, ooh, I don't want to eat that. You're just going to go, ah, yes, dinner.
Yeah, there was also more species of horses back then, too, so...
Well, of course there was. Humans hadn't eaten them all yet.
Oh, no. We're like Nibbler from Futurama, just completely eradicating species.
We are the devourer of worlds. This is what we do.
We have tried eating every kind of species, so we find out which ones are poisonous and which ones are venomous. This one I eat when I bite, but this one kills me when it bites me.
Yeah.
But this is also kind of interesting because you really start seeing a couple of different things here. One, clearly the importance of the bison in terms of their culture and in terms of their environment. Like, the artist here, I'm imagining, probably witnessed this firsthand and decided to depict it, and I'm just wondering how long it took him to carve it, because it is fairly intricately carved and detailed, but also at the same time it's not. I mean, the hairs are just straight lines. The chin is defined by a couple of notches. The eye is round. I could imagine that a pretty skilled crafter could make this in probably 30 minutes, an hour.
I think it's probably a little longer than that, just because of how much has gone into making them all as parallel as possible. Like, the head is very much detailed, even if the rest of the body is left to just the general shape of the stone.
I still think an adept crafter could do this fairly quickly. But it's interesting, and it's also interesting that it comes from a piece of deer antler, which means they could have either hunted the deer or gotten a deer shed, potentially. But antler was used a lot of times in flint knapping, which would have been used for tool production. So either this was a leftover scrap from that, or it could be that their antler awl or whatever it may have been could have cracked or broken and they repurposed it, which does happen a lot. But it's one of those cool cultural flagstones that you do occasionally see, and this is one of the reasons why I very much am a Paleolithic centered person personally, is because you start seeing some of the first real instances of culture and of society here. Because when humans start developing artworks and start creating art, it shows that they have time beyond just the traditional food production. When you are no longer worried about pure survival and pure just living, and you're able to create artwork, it shows cultural development. It shows skill. I mean, to be able to develop the skill to craft this takes time. You don't just accidentally do it. You have to take time to dedicate to it. You know, it's one of those things that you don't really consider, but there's a lot of things that go into this. Like, how long do you think the person who crafted this had been crafting?
Long time.
This is one of those trades where this is a big part of your livelihood at this point. Not in the sense that we have livelihoods of like I work a 9 to 5 and get paid, but more in the sense of like you've been carving stuff since you were a kid, and this is a part of how you make your tools.
Yeah, so he's probably an adept flint knapper and probably just had time sitting there, maybe taking a break under a shady tree, watching a bison lick a fly wound, and just decide to give it a carve. And it's just fascinating to me. 14,000 years ago, and it lives to today, and we're able to talk about it and see it because a lot of us, I don't think, could live that lifestyle, especially during the Ice Age. Like, could you imagine how? And this is in France. This was in Magdalene Shelter in Saint Remez, which is not a tropical region by any means.
Yeah, no, it's it gets cold there now.
So, just kind of an interesting little thing here of how something so small can really give us an inference into what life was like back then and how they lived. And I just think it's cool because you also see them doing cave paintings and just how they work and how they go about doing it. And the article actually does highlight it because researchers think because food was plentiful, members of the culture had enough leisure time to focus on other endeavors, including art. So they highlighted the exact same logic and justification that I had just said there. But anyways, rambling on. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.